Okay, because we had a full review session on like review day that where I went over all my stuff, I don't have much to go over. There are a couple of things that I want to. Yeah, the question is, so can you type on, like have a typed out sheet? 100%, that's fine. Yep, the only rules are the size. That's it. That's all that I'm restricting. We can go over problem set questions, recitation questions. We can go over any of the review questions. There are a couple of review questions that I wanted to talk about. One specifically that I wanted to highlight. And it talks about in the supply and demand review. Actually, let me just hop on Sakai here quick. So I don't know, there's one question I wanted to highlight. I was talking with Maddie about okay, can you guys all, how do I turn those lights off? Okay, I'm gonna go low. Sorry, I know that's like not fun, but you can see the screen better, I think. Yeah, so I wanted to quickly highlight, there's which question was it then? Okay, so yeah, so these two questions right here, 10 and 11, I don't know what's going on with them. If you've done these, don't worry about them too much. It's a question about, here's the quantities supplied and demanded this week, here's the quantities supplied the next week. And it's saying when the price goes up and the quantity goes up, that demand decrease. And I'm like, oh, what's up, guys? Were you guys? Oh, it was locked? Yeah. Oh, geez. Like the which door? That way. Wait, what do you mean by both? Like both the doors Okay, well, I'll start over. There are a couple things that I had to say. Okay, so I just had a comment. If you've done some of these supply and demand questions 10 and 11 on the review, I don't understand why the answer is demand decrease. If the price goes up and the quantity goes up, then the price goes up. If we write out our demand, right? If we have demand, supply, P, Q, and the price goes up and the quantity goes up, that means demand shifts to the right or increases. So I don't know why it has the answer here as B. So we're not going to have a question that looks exactly like this on the test. So don't worry about that. Same thing for 11. It's also backwards. I don't know. I'm just not understanding. I got these from like a couple of other professors. Some of them are mine. We all like contributed. So whoever created this question, I don't know what they're like. I don't know what they had in mind. Yeah, like it could have been like there might be a mistake, or they might just be thinking something else. I can't get a read on it. So don't worry too much about it. If you do understand it and you want to say something, that's totally fine. You can say that too. But I'm just saying, don't worry about those two questions. I put up the rest of the answer key for all the unit 2 and unit 3 questions for the review. I also will say this, some of you who have been going to the Econ Aid Center have picked up on this, but there is a practice exam for Professor Staub's class in there with all the answers and the short, like a full test or whatever. Our test is going to be like similar in scope and questions. So if you want a full like practice test to take, you should go take that test if you have some time. If you do well on it, you're probably going to do well on our test. If you don't do well, they'll probably tell you that you need to study a little bit more. Okay. I will say, I was talking to one of her students, and honestly, I think their midterms are a little bit harder than ours. At least the free response questions were. But so if you do well, you should feel really confident. If you don't do well, then just keep practicing, okay? And don't panic, all right? Yeah. Ooh, I think so. I think it's open from 8 to 8. I don't know. That's a really good question. Does anybody know? I think because it's the finals week, I think it is open from 8 to 8. I can double check that. Also, if you go in there and you're just studying or working by yourself and there are ULAs in there or like the staff, anybody who's ever taken Professor Staub's class would be a good person to talk to. Or if they've taken my class, but I've only had like before this year, like 20 students. So they're probably not in there. Yeah. No, it's literally hard copy in there. And I'm not gonna like take it from her without asking her or anything. And don't take it home with you. Like there's only like 5 copies. She left them there for her students. What I'm telling you guys is it would be good practice if you want to go do it. Okay, but don't like take it because it's for her students. Although I think their final is actually today. Yeah, right now I think. Okay, so yeah, that's all that I had for that stuff. What else did I have? One more thing. Just as a reminder, show up early. Basic calculator, not going to be any different than the first 2 tests. Going to be similar in length as like 2 tests combined. It's going to go over all the material. You can have a review sheet, which is a little bit different, right? The review sheet, the only rules on the review sheet are you cannot, the only rules are the size of the review sheet, which I said you can either have a full sheet front, like one-sided, or half sheet front and back. Just don't cheat if you do like take a full sheet and I'm walking around and I'm seeing you flipping it back and forth. You're literally going to get a 0 on the spot. So just don't do that. What else? I think that's it. Bring a Scantron. I wasn't able to get any. I'm going to go. I might go buy some if I have to on Monday, but I wasn't able to get any today. So yeah, okay. Anybody want to start with any specific questions right off the bat? Yeah, come on.
Can you tell her quantity effect and price effect and how it's going to operate?
Okay, so like with total revenue you're talking about? Yeah, sure, let's do it. Okay. Let me just go to those notes. Okay, good question. So she asked about quantity effect and price effect. This was kind of a big slide that we went over, but I'll go on and I'll do a new question or a new sheet. So if you guys remember, there's a relationship between elasticity, between elasticity and revenue, okay? And that relationship is when price elasticity of demand equals 1 or is unit elastic, total revenue is maximized. And we've talked about that in two contexts. The first context was when we were just talking about elasticity. And the second is when we were talking about monopoly. And the idea is like this, okay? So we have our demand, we have our price, we have our quantity, and we have our demand equation, right? And then we have the marginal revenue, which is twice this slope of the demand for a linear demand curve, okay? What all that I kind of wanted to bring out and introduce here is to bring that topic back. Marginal revenue is how much additional revenue you get for the next unit bought and sold, right? And all that this is saying is at this point right here, where marginal revenue is 0, that's where total revenue is going to be maximized, okay? This is the quantity, and this is total revenue. And this is also going to be the point where this is relatively what? Inelastic or elastic? Inelastic. Is that what somebody said? Hold on. All right, I'll just do it then. Let's think. So if the price goes down a little bit, quantity goes down a lot or goes up a lot, that's elastic, right? Maybe that's what somebody said. And this is relatively inelastic, okay? And then at that point that I highlighted, this is the point of unit elasticity. And that's all that I really wanted to talk about. I just wanted to relate for you guys the idea that when marginal revenue is 0, that's when total revenue is maximized. Okay, same, yep. Yeah, I can, yep. So remember, price elasticity of demand is this equation, right? It's the percent change in quantity over the percent change in price, okay? So when we go from a quantity of 1 to a quantity of 2, okay, that's doubling our quantity, right? But when we go from a price of 10 to a price of 9, right? Let me get these numbers right. Get these dashes right. So price of 10 up here, price of 9 right here. Right, we're only dropping our price by a little bit, 10%. So our quantity is going up a lot, but our price is only going down a little bit. So it's relatively elastic here, right? Because that's what it's saying. For it to be elastic, it has to be the case that the quantity is responding a lot to a small price change. Okay. Or if for when we're looking at the actual equation, it's if the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Oh, this is absolute values. I'm really sorry. Absolute value. If it's greater than 1, then elastic. We have elastic demand. If the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, we have inelastic. And if the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, then it's unit elastic. Okay. So it's kind of like its own topic because there's more complicated things that we could talk about related to this, but we're not going to go into them. If you take more econ classes, you 100% will. But I just wanted to introduce it. Okay. Because what do we go into? We go into, when we talk about monopoly, their quantity, their price, their profits, that kind of thing. Good question. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Any more questions? Yeah, Christopher. Total surplus with the tax and subsidy. Yep, you bet. So unit 1 review. Okay. Okay, so taxes and subsidies. Price and quantity. Okay, so the equilibrium price is right here, right? And in the absence of any, excuse me, in the absence of any externalities, this equilibrium quantity is going to be the efficient quantity. Okay, it's where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. We're not worried about social and private unless we talk about externalities. Okay, so if we get some price here, or if we have the price, and we're trying to figure out what the implications of a tax or a subsidy are, we first need to know what the quantity and the new prices will be with a tax or a subsidy. So let's say a subsidy. If I have a subsidy, is my actual quantity going to be like the quantity bought and sold, going to be to the left or to the right? Or is it going to be smaller or larger than the equilibrium quantity? If I have a subsidy. Larger, right? Larger to the right. The idea is you're giving people an incentive to do more of something than they would otherwise like to do. Okay. Let's say that the subsidy amount is right here. Okay. This is the subsidy amount. Okay. So that subsidy amount, then our consumer surplus is going to be, if this, let's call this QB, the quantity bought and sold. Our consumer surplus is going to be everything above the demand curve, below the price, and out to the quantity. So the tricky part here is we don't know what the price is going to be yet, right? The price could be right here, or the price could be right here. In reality, we're going to have two separate prices, right? The consumers are going to pay one price and the producers are going to get another price. Why is there that discrepancy? Because we have a subsidy, okay? So the producers get the seller's price and the consumers get what we'll call maybe the buyer's price, okay? So everything above the demand curve, below the demand curve, above the price that the buyers pay, out to the quantity, that's going to be the consumer surplus. Okay. Everything above the supply curve or the marginal cost, right? If we're not in perfect competition, it's going to be the marginal cost. Above the supply curve, below the price that the sellers get for each unit that's sold, that's going to be the producer surplus. Okay. The one other thing that we need to take into account, though, is that there's going to be some cost. Yeah, sorry, John.
Wait, so consumer and producer surplus in this case overlap with one another, but they don't come to each other's share.
Yep, yeah, because all that we're saying is the producer surplus is the difference between the price and the marginal cost for each unit that they get, for each unit that they sell. Okay, so just because they're overlapping areas, it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but we're going to talk about it right now, right? So the problem here is that the subsidy has a cost, right? Like on the face of it, it's like, oh, well, the sellers are better off, the buyers are better off. Let's just subsidize every good in all of existence. But there's no free lunch in economics, right? There's a cost of this subsidy. So the other thing we want to figure out is what that subsidy cost is. And that's going to be this gray rectangle that I'm highlighting in right here, okay? So the subsidy cost is in the gray rectangle. Okay, so if you want to figure out what the total surplus is, what I like to do is I like to write in, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to figure out what the total surplus would be without the subsidy and with the subsidy. Okay, so because we're going to be concerned about potential deadweight loss, and deadweight loss is any loss in total surplus from not being at the efficient quantity. Okay, so let's do the total surplus, or what's the without the subsidy. Consumer surplus is equal to A, B, C, and F. Okay, right? I know this looks like an E. So F producer surplus is equal to B, C, and these are pluses, right? B plus C plus D plus E. Okay, and then the total surplus is just equal to the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus. With the subsidy, the consumer surplus is equal to, oh geez, excuse me, this is not correct. My bad, guys. Feel free to kill me about that, or like let me know, right? Okay, so it's A plus B, and without the subsidy, we're going to have C plus D, right? That's just our standard graph. With the subsidy, it's going to be A plus B plus C plus F. Producer surplus is equal to B plus C plus D plus E. Okay, and the subsidy amount, we're going to have to subtract that out, right? Because that's a negative, is equal to B plus C plus E plus F plus G. So then when we want to find the total surplus, we need to add the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus and subtract the subsidy amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, okay, I can get rid of a B, I can get rid of a C, I can get rid of an E, I can get rid of an F. So we're going to be left with A plus B plus C plus D. Okay, not bad. That's what we had before, but minus G. So our deadweight loss from the subsidy is going to be G. Okay. Yeah. Help producers produce the good at a lower cost. Yeah, that's one. Yeah. Yes. So what's so we're subtracting the subsidy amount because for total surplus, we care about like the welfare of the whole society, right? And the government's part of that. And so you might have consumers in a market and producers in a market getting some benefit, but then everybody who's not participating in that market has to pay for it, for the extra benefit. You see what I'm saying? And we want to account for that somehow. So that's why we subtract the subsidy amount out, because how does that get paid for? Well, we have to pay in through different types of taxes and whatever. And so we're going to subtract out that cost. Okay. So, Laurel? Minus G. Yeah. For the total surplus. And then the deadweight loss, we're just saying is G, because deadweight loss is like isn't a lot negative. Yeah. For with the subsidy. Yeah. The idea is because it's like the consumers in that market get some benefit. They get F extra, right? Okay, that's fine. But when you're thinking about total surplus, you're thinking about the welfare of the entire economy, right? Or the whole system. And that benefit is coming directly from outside of the market. Everybody's having to pay that subsidy to you, basically. Does that make sense? Okay. And same thing for E.
With taxes, like, have a little bit of equity loss because it comes from the government.
Yeah, so with the tax, it's the opposite. And if maybe we can go to somebody else and we can come back to that if we have time. But it's just the opposite with the tax, right? Both the consumers and producers lose out, but then the government gets revenue that they can redistribute to society. Okay. Okay. Other things that people want to talk about? Yeah,
Can you go over externalities? What you think is important?
sure. Externalities, very related to what we were just talking about. Okay, we went over this a little bit. So for those of you who are in office hours, I'm sorry if this is kind of repetition, but externalities. All right. So the key thing here is that there are four types of externalities. There's externalities in consumption, negative and positive, and externalities in production, negative and positive. Okay. The first thing that you're trying to figure out for any question is whether it's a externality in consumption or production, and if it's negative or positive. Okay. That's important because it helps us determine what we would write down on our graph. Okay. The reason why is when we're going to look at welfare and total surplus, we care about the marginal social benefit. Okay. When there is an externality, the efficient quantity is where marginal social benefit equals marginal social cost. Okay. Marginal social benefit equals marginal social cost. Well, we're usually going to be given a demand, which is the marginal private benefit, or a supply, which is the marginal private cost curve. So how do we figure out what the marginal social benefit and marginal social costs are? The marginal social benefit is equal to the marginal private benefit, which is just the demand curve, okay? For the context of this class usually. Or the marginal cost, like if you're given some marginal cost curve for a monopoly, then it's the marginal cost curve for the monopoly, right? Plus any marginal external benefit minus any marginal external cost in consumption, okay? An example of a marginal external benefit in consumption would be like education. I think that's the example that I've used the whole time. An example of marginal external, or something that has a marginal externality, a marginal external cost in consumption would be smoking cigarettes. Okay. If I smoke cigarettes and I blow them in John's face, well, now he has secondhand smoke and he's got lung cancer. I don't have to pay for that cost, right? So to society, the value of consumption for cigarettes is lower than it is for the private individual. Then we have the same thing, but it's a little bit different, and you want to make sure that you don't get tripped up on this, okay? For the marginal social cost, you have the marginal private cost, which is usually the supply curve. Again, if now that we've got monopolies, right, we're thinking the monopolies supply curve is the marginal cost curve usually, okay? Plus, or sorry, excuse me, minus a marginal external benefit. Well, wait, why is a benefit have a negative on it? The idea is when we're thinking about costs, right, it's better if a cost is lower, right, than if the cost is higher. So if we have some kind of benefit, then it's going to make our costs lower, okay? Example of a marginal external benefit in production. Oh no. I don't know. Does anybody have one? What'd you say? Bees and honey. Oh, duh. Yeah, bees and honey, right? So when honey's produced, the bees go out and they pollinate all the flowers. Everybody's happy. Good one. And then marginal external cost in production. Why does the cost have a plus? It's because it makes the social cost higher, right? That's any type of pollution from any type of producer, right? The producers of goods that have pollutants, they don't have to internalize that cost on their own, and so they're going to want to, at every price, they're going to want to supply a higher quantity than would be efficient for society. Okay. Okay, so that's like the starting point. Then the next thing that we would care about is also, Karen, I'll get to your thing on here in a second. I forgot about it. The next thing that we care about is how can we translate all of this to a graph, right? We had a question on one of these on midterm 1. So if you have your demand, you have your supply. We might care about, okay, supply, demand. We already know about that. This is the equilibrium quantity. This is the equilibrium price. Okay, that's all fine. What if there is, for example, a positive externality in consumption? There's a positive externality. Oops, that's not right. If there's a positive externality in consumption, then the marginal social benefit curve is going to be higher than the marginal private benefit curve. If you say to yourself, shift, there's no shift. The demand curve is not shifting. This is a totally different curve, okay? Marginal social benefit. Okay, let's say there's no externalities in production. So the marginal private cost is just equal to the marginal social cost. Okay. So now what we're going to care about is we're going to go through again. We have consumer surplus, producer surplus, total surplus, and then we're going to talk about deadweight loss. Okay. The idea here is, what did we say up top? The efficient quantity is where the marginal social benefit equals the marginal social cost. Okay, well, that's not where demand crosses supply anymore. So now we're going to have some sort of inefficiency introduced because of this this idea where the social benefit and the private benefit aren't equal to one another. So the consumer surplus though doesn't change. For consumer surplus, you might as well erase any extra social benefit or social cost curves from your mind, okay? Because we don't care about them for consumers. Because we're talking about the consumers in the market, that's the private market. So the consumer surplus is still everything. If we're at Q star, it's still everything below the demand curve, above the equilibrium price, out to the quantity. Same deal for producers. They don't care about the social curve. Their social curve is the same as their private curve in this case. So nothing new there, okay? What comes in though is we have this new idea here of like a external benefit, right? There's an external benefit to society of the whole economy producing the good. That external benefit to society is going to be the difference between the marginal social benefit and marginal private benefit. That's just going to be this guy right here. Okay, this is just the external benefit. Maybe your book says total external benefit. I'm not sure. Okay. Well, what's the problem? We could get more benefit if we were to go to QE. What is that amount that we could get? It's just what I'm going to write down in blue here. This amount right here, deadweight loss. Okay, it's important that you know that it's this triangle and not the purple triangle, which isn't going to mean anything. Pointless. Okay. Because it's the difference between the social benefit and the social cost for each unit that isn't being bought and sold, okay? So hopefully that kind of makes sense for us, and we were able to like go through the different scenarios and identify the right areas for the deadweight loss in the economy, okay? The last thing that might be, well, there might be more things, but the last thing that I can think of off the top of my head that might be important is, okay, what instrument can the government use to kind of correct for this externality? Well, to get to the efficient quantity. Well, what they can do is they can use what's like a Pigouvian tax or a subsidy in this case, because we're going to want to increase the quantity. And that amount that they want to increase the quantity to get to this efficient quantity is this amount right here. Okay, there are several examples in the problem set and from the test as well, right, about how to do this, different questions, right? But the idea is, let's say that the marginal external benefit is equal to 4. Okay, to figure out what the subsidy amount is, oh shoot, excuse me. Well, the subsidy amount is just going to be 4 if it's constant, right? But if it wasn't constant, then you would have to figure out what's going on at QE. Okay, so the last thing, I think that's it actually for this.
So they can fix that, so they can fix that with the subsidy.
Fix that with a subsidy of this amount. Fix it by meaning you get to the efficient quantity. No, we have an example in recitation where it wasn't, right? So that's a good one to review, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so like it could be the case that your marginal external benefit looks like this, right? Shoot. 4 minus 1/2 Q or something. And so in that case, you would still just add this external benefit up here to give you a new social benefit curve. Yeah. You're saying here? Yeah, you can do MSC minus MPB or MSB minus because they cross, right? So they're the same. Yeah, so you can do either. Yeah. If there was a positive externality in production, yeah, it would be up here. Yep. Yeah, so yeah, it's good to check your understanding of that because we're like, oh, that's like less, but it's because it's positive externality in production means it costs less. So the social cost is above. Wait, no. No, I said that wrong. So did you ask about a positive externality? If there's a positive externality in production, it's going to be down here because it costs less and we want a higher quantity for each unit. Here, I can write that one down, okay? Just so we know. Okay. So if we have a positive externality in production, then that means that we're going to so we have an external benefit. So the slope it'll intercept lower and shift it down. Yeah. Okay,
Positive in consumption, like all the interest rates.
yep, that's the one we just did. Yeah, so there's a, from, is it in unit 1? There's an example of a question. Yeah, so I've gotten a few questions about this. Maybe there's lots of questions on achieve for this. I wouldn't spend too much time on it, just know what I'm about to show you, okay? Does anybody remember what? Maybe, who was I talking to in office hours with this about? Do you remember where that question came from? Okay, let's try. If not, we'll see. Yeah, okay, so can you guys see this? So this is supposed to be, typo. Okay, so the idea is, right, if you have two parties and they each have a different value on what they would like to do. Javed has a value of $500 for getting his writing done, and Tommen has a value of $300 for getting to do band practice. So the efficient outcome, if only one of those two things can happen, right? It's either band is going to happen or the writing is going to happen. The efficient outcome for society is for the writing to get done, because that's a higher value between the two of them. Okay. And all that we care about for transaction costs is when you have that difference, as long as your transaction costs are less than the difference, you can get to the efficient outcome. So what that means is if I'm the one who wants to write the article and John's the one who wants to practice band, I can come up to him and say, I will give you $301 to not do band, and he would accept that deal. As long as I don't also have some like internal costs of like, I really don't like talking to him, like really, really, really don't like talking to him. I would rather have $200, let's say, than talk to him. Okay. As long as there's not transaction costs of $200 or more, we're all set, and we can get to the efficient outcome of me getting to do my writing in peace. And that's all that I'm really looking for. Is that helpful? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there might be a typo. Yeah. This is a typo. Yeah. There's like multiple typos. Like this name is wrong. So just like forget what I'm saying. Like what I said is what we're talking about, and like the idea. Okay. As long as the difference of the values is greater than transaction costs, you can get to the efficient outcome. Okay. And we also talked about this, something like this in the notes too, where we talked about you're guaranteed to get to the efficient outcome if there are no transaction costs, always, right? Another way of saying that is how I just said it now. Okay. D and C, I think. Oh yeah, these are started. So yeah, so D. But like I said, this is a typo. It's to allow Java to continue writing. It's supposed to be writing. Yeah. Isn't 301 greater than 200?
What is the difference between
Yeah, that's for the second question though, right? Transaction costs need to be less than $200. If you value something at $300 and I come up to you and say, I'll give you $301 to not do that thing, you would do that and you would make a profit of $1, right? If my value of you not doing that thing is $500, well, I just made a profit of $199. We're both better off, right? Does that make sense? That's the efficient outcome. When two people, it's a Pareto efficient allocation. When two people are better off, when both are better off, that's more efficient than the other option. Okay. Yeah.
So is that 301 not the transaction cost?
Yeah, that's what this is saying. For the first part, which of the following? It's just saying I'm going to give you $300.
Okay, so it's just kind of using logic.
Yeah. It's just Pareto efficiency. Good question. Okay. Okay, so somebody asked an open-ended, Karen asked an open-ended question. What do you suggest to study for in the free response, like focus on, I'm guessing that means recitations or problems in problem set or achieve problems. What would be the best way to study, would you say? Best way to study. Oh my goodness. I don't know. And I don't know if you guys can speak up about this too, but I would, depending on how much time I have, the first things that I would do is I would make sure I would go through the previous 2 tests, make sure that I know where I messed up, know what I can do better. I think the big topics or some of the things that we've talked about are going to be important from unit 1, like externalities and elasticity. That doesn't mean everything isn't going to be important. I'm just saying, look back at unit 1. Those are some maybe of the more complicated topics and harder ones to get down. So you might need more practice on them. Okay. Taxes and subsidies are going to be important. Supply and demand shifters are going to be important, but hopefully those will be more in the back of your head now and you'll have it down. For unit 2, I definitely think you want to go over the ADAS model. This is for free response specifically, aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, and then how things like monetary policy, fiscal policy, international trade relate back to it. Unit 3, I think it's important that you know how perfect competition and monopoly relate to one another, right? And monopolistic competition's in the middle there, right? And then I also think it's important, I realized some of this when I was going through with students over in office hours, that you understand that, and I totally get why this would be skipped over, but you understand that when we go over unit 1, we're assuming that we're in perfect competition. So you have supply, demand, you have a market, okay? And that's what we do, right? The first day when we talked about perfect competition for unit 3, we said, here's the market. This is the firm. Right, we drew both of the graphs. They're related to each other. The market sets the price for the firm. And then we said, okay, now we have a new firm type, a monopoly, okay? And then we said, now it all kind of breaks down and we have to think about it differently. It's important that you understand that, how you transition from one type of economy to another, right? For those of you who did the writing assignment, I hope you had some idea of thinking through that or whatever as well. That's why I think it's important for unit 3. As far as what you can study, yeah, I think a couple of the recitation problems will be really good if you don't remember them, or let's say you didn't do them. For example, one that I think would be really good is there's that recitation problem from unit 1 that talks about the non-constant externality. Why do I think that's important or good? Because that's different. It's like in addition to what we learned in class, right? And as you've seen on the test, that's exactly how the tests are written. So if you understand the basic concepts of externality, you'll be able to do the first 6 parts of that question, right? And then it might be a little bit harder to think through, but that's what we're trying to go for in testing these things, okay? So yes, I think going over some of the recitation problems for the free response could be good. For those of you who have the ability, I would literally after this class walk over to the Econ Aid Center and take a picture of the free response questions in Professor Staub's And the practice exam, please do not actually take one. I don't know if she wants them to be distributed. I don't know like what she does and how she uses those exams, but definitely go ahead and take a picture of it. And study, then do that question. You'll know if you understand that topic or not, right? Some of you have already done it, and I said they're good questions, definitely. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about the free response. Kind of what I've said every time. Okay, any more topical questions? Yeah. We can, okay? We can go over it together, okay? This is an interactive thing here, okay? Because this is my favorite topic. Okay. 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 International exchange, right? Not trade. We're talking about exchange rates, foreign exchange, okay? So foreign exchange. Okay, so the idea here is we're looking at the market for currency. So this was a macro topic, but we're looking at a specific market. Let's use just euros and US dollars. So euros and US dollars have an exchange rate. If you ever go from the United States to Europe and you have US dollars in cash, you can't spend it there. You have to exchange your US dollars at the airport or at a bank for euros for an exchange rate. That exchange rate today is probably something like 0.87 euro per US dollar. Okay, so all that means is if I give you $1 US, I'm going to get back 0.87 euros. Okay, so when we draw the market out, we have the quantity of dollars here, right? Quantity of dollars, and then euros per US dollar here. And then we have an equilibrium quantity, Q star, and an equilibrium. We have an equilibrium exchange rate, E star. Okay. What are some of the important things? So if the exchange rate goes up, that means our currency, this is the market for dollars, right? Market for USD. Okay, whatever's in the denominator is what we're worried about, like the market we're looking at. So if the exchange rate goes up, that means that the currency is appreciating, right? We can get more euros for our US dollars. If the exchange rate goes down, that means that it's depreciating. Okay. This is different than the money market, okay? We're not talking about the money, the quantity of money supplied, the quantity of money demanded, and the money demand and the money supply, okay? This is literally just how much what dictates this is how much Americans want European goods and how much Europeans want American goods. And that's it, okay? That's the idea. So the other main thing that we care about is how does the demand for these things shift. So if Americans want more European goods, the demand will shift to the right or up. Okay, I'll write that down. If Americans want more excuse me. Is that right? You guys, it's the other way. Yeah. if Americans want more European goods, then the demand for euros would increase, right? So that's actually the opposite. So it's like, if Europeans want more American goods, there we go. Thank you. All right, so if Europeans want more American goods, then demand for US dollars goes up, and the US dollar appreciates, okay? And then vice versa, if you look at it from the Europeans' perspective as well, right? That's the main thing that I mean, that's pretty much it. The last thing that I want to say is, how does this then relate back to macroeconomy? If Europeans want more American goods and demand is shifting up, then net exports are increasing, right? And that's going to increase aggregate demand. And that's, I think, it. That's all that I care about for the sake of currency exchange. Okay, there may be a few other small things that we went over in the notes, but that's like the big idea. Okay,
So this increase in import of export.
I think so. I might need to double check that. Can you write that down? I don't have my chapter or whatever notes on here. Okay, so
If the currency appreciates,
if the currency appreciates, then, oh yeah, this is why I hate this. No, this is good. This is good. Okay. Sorry, you guys. Thanks for sticking with me. So if currency appreciates, so forget about what we just talked about in one, right? If currency appreciates, then it becomes cheaper for Americans to buy foreign goods. Net exports falls. Aggregate demand shifts to what? Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, that's all that I care about. Those things there, that story, that kind of idea. Okay, those are the main points. There's one other thing that you might want to review. It's how to get real exchange, like the real cost of goods versus nominal, right? And that's just like one slide on the notes that you can go over. Okay. Okay. Next topic. Emma, you had a question. Sure. Sure. Okay. Okay, so we have quantity. I think this is just labor. So no, this is revenue, right? This is dollars. And this is quantity of laborers. Okay, so we have two graphs that we're worried, or two lines we're worried about. We have the marginal product of labor that usually looks something like this. And we have the average product of labor. Whoops, that wasn't right. Average product of labor, which might look something like this. Okay. All that we're saying here is, here we have increasing returns to scale. Here we have decreasing. What does that mean? That just means that for a while, when you are adding more workers, right? So this is the number of workers, 1, 2, 3, 4. When you add more workers, you have gains from specialization, right? So I always do the Chipotle example because that's the one I literally learned like 11 years ago when I was in like when I was sat in this class, and like I taught myself because I ate Chipotle like every day. Right, you have somebody wrapping the burritos, and if they do that a million times, they become an expert wrapper in the burritos. But they're not going to be able to do that a million times if they're the only person on the line. So if you hire a second worker who cuts all the chicken, they get really good at cutting all the chicken. For a while, you get increasing returns. You can make more burritos. Okay. But after a while, once you have 3, 4, 5, 6, you still have the same limited kitchen space. And so your marginal product of labor is going to start to fall. That's when you have decreasing returns to labor. And then your average product of labor is just how much of the good you're creating divided by the number of workers that you have. Yeah. Yep. And that's always the case, right? So just as like if you go take 410, you'll figure out this out, like you'll see this pattern. The marginal always goes through the minimum or the max. So if you have a curve that looks like this, marginal is always going to go through the max. If you have a curve that looks like this, it's always going to go through the minimum. I think you could also see this happen too, right? This is also. Oh wait, no, why did I just do that? Undo. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so I don't know if there was any other question about that. This is something I get asked a lot. So, but I don't know that we spend a ton of time on it. It is important, but do you have any other follow-up questions? Okay, yeah. Yeah, although that literally just means that it's going up and then going down, right? That's what increase. Yeah. Yep. Good question. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So the other point where it comes up is if I draw the firm's price equals marginal revenue, right? And you have a marginal cost, and then you have an average total cost, and you have an average variable cost. For these guys, it's always going to be the case that your marginal goes through them. Like that's all that I'm saying. It's like the same idea. Like the same reason why this goes through the minimum is the same reason why this goes through the maximum. Okay. But not for the average fix. And I hope you attended recitation, you saw the average fixed cost just looks like this because it's always decreasing. And you don't need to draw an average fixed cost curve unless I explicitly ask for it ever. Okay. But yeah, make sure you know that how this picture is, right? Definitely something we talked about a lot. Somebody else had their hand raised? No? Okay. Okay, any more topics you guys want to talk about? Yeah. Sure. Okay. So demand, supply, right? Okay, we don't actually need the equilibrium quantity here to do what you just asked explicitly. Let's say there's some tax amount and it is this much, okay? This is the tax amount. Then the price the buyers pay is right here. the price the sellers get is right here. Okay, so the burden that each pays, the consumer's burden equals PB minus P star. Okay. The producer's burden equals P star minus PS. And then if you want to get the percentage, just divide that by the tax amount. Okay. Real quick, who's going to bear more of the burden of a tax? Not from this one, but just in general. The more inelastic the curve is, okay? So whoever has the steeper curve, whoever has the larger slope, okay? Oh, yeah, whoever has the steeper curve, whoever has the larger slope at that point. Okay. Okay, any more questions? I might have one more. Okay, well, I don't have anything else to review other than what we went over on Wednesday. If you weren't able to do those things on Wednesday and kind of build those out step by step, I think it would be good for you to go over all of those. I think that might be the most concise, like, set of topics that you can start from if you haven't started studying yet. Okay. Was today the first day to take finals? Okay. Yeah, so the last things that I'd have to say, if you are going to reschedule your final, yes, again, the cheat sheet for the final can be checked out. If you're going to reschedule this final because you have another final, the econ department as a whole literally only sets up one time for another final. So let me know soon so you can put that on your schedule. Like if you have, I think if you get 3 finals on the same day, you don't have to, but you can reschedule one of them, right? So yeah, let me know quickly if that's going to be the case for you. You have to go through like an official process to do that, but yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's all I have. I'll stick around if people want to come up and ask specific questions. Otherwise, go through all the stuff in the notes. I feel like there's lots of material. I'll be available via email. Like I'll check my email pretty regularly. So just feel free to email me as well. I know some of you guys have already, and I've tried to email you back quickly. Yeah, that's all I have. So other than that, have a good day. Good luck on studying. I'll see you guys on Tuesday, 4 p.m. Phillips. Okay, our normal, sorry, Davy. Jeez. Davy. Davy 1, 2, 2, whatever. Our normal room. Okay. Yeah. One sec. Let me respond to this guy.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Hey, what's up? Also, thank you for that email, by the way. Appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much. Can you explain this one more time about why this is elastic and that's inelastic?
Yeah, let's just plug in some fake numbers. Okay, so if I put in like 10 here and 9 here. Okay, so put in 10 and 9 for price and then draw them out, right? Like,
So that 10 or
so we have the demand curve, like this, let's call this 10. Let's call this 9.
10
That's one.
and
Talking about like the SRS.
9. Yep.
9.
And then let's call this 1 and this 2.
And then 1.
And 2.
I think
Okay, okay. Now, do you see how when we go from this point to this point, we have a small change in the price, like percent change, it's only 10%.
Mhm.
But we get 100% change in the quantity.
Mhm.
We have a big quantity percent change, but a small price percent change.
Mhm.
So that's the definition of elasticity. Right?
Okay,
And then vice versa, if you switch these numbers around, they give 9, 10, and 1, 2, it's the same thing. Okay,
so big quantity change, small price change.
is elastic,
Okay,
right?
okay, that makes sense. And then for dead weight loss here, it's the difference between social benefit and social cost for each
Yeah.
unit not bought and sold.
Yeah, from the efficient quantity. So we were stuck here, we would like to get here. So that's why we go this way.
Mhm.
Right, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have office hours on Sunday?
Yeah, I will. They're gonna be virtual though, so if that works, just email me when you wanna like do
Okay.
them. I think 1 to 3 is when I say.
Okay.
I already have one student for sure coming, so I'll be available.
Okay.
Okay,
perfect.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not sure about APL one more time. So APL, is it average or aggregate?
Average.
Average, okay, and the equation is APL equals.
Yeah, so the aggregate APF, that's a
Yeah,
different thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's totally a
Yeah.
different thing. Okay, make sure you, yeah. I'm sure you do, but I just want to
Yeah.
clarify. Aggregate production function is a whole different ballgame.
Right, so the APL thing, what is that like in reference to? I don't remember.
So we just did one there. Do you remember when we first did the cost curves? We did how much labor is like, there's a recitation and it was like, you had to find the marginal cost, average variable cost. Did you?
Yeah, I know.
So one of the things that we had to do was draw the marginal product of labor and the average product of labor. Why? Because I looked and I saw that one of the things you need to know for 410 is the average product of labor. So that's what I did.
Okay, but we don't need to know this.
I mean, just other than that, it is if you take the total product and divide it by the quantity, right? Total production, right? Total
Yeah.
product is how much production you have and divide by the quantity, that's your average. So the
Yeah.
quantity being the number of laborers, okay?
Oh, cool.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
That's all.
How do we determine like when something is more inefficient? So if like a question asks us if a price ceiling or like a tax burden, how do we like,
Yeah.
find out?
Yeah, whichever one makes you further away from the efficient quantity. So you need to figure out what the efficient quantity is.
It's like the equilibrium.
Yeah, so let's do, I know there's one question I can think of specifically, right? Okay. You have price, quantity, and then you have demand and supply. Okay, and then let's say we have a price ceiling that is a certain amount above the equilibrium, okay? Right, so this is the price ceiling, or price floor, this is the price floor, okay, of this amount. So now I'm gonna try drawing the exact same amount for a tax. Do you see how the quantity with the price ceiling, quantity in equilibrium, and the quantity of tax?
Yeah.
The tax quantity is a lot closer than the price ceiling quantity. Now, that's just, I just said they're the same, but if they're different, then you probably have equations given, and you gotta figure it out. Do you see what I'm saying? You can look at every loss, but this is gonna be easy, this is gonna be a quicker way to get there, because you're gonna need to find these quantities anyways. And you could say, okay, let's do everything out, and then let's look at the deadweight loss generated for each of them. That's fine, if that's the only information given, that's totally fine. But if instead you're given, if you can somehow get the quantity first, which usually you'll be able to, then that's gonna be better. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question
Yeah.
about the difference between demand and funding demanded.
Okay,
'Cause I
sure.
forgot.
Yeah, so the demand is like a curve, right? It's the whole curve. The demand for a good is the relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. Okay, so for each price, there's a quantity demanded, and then that makes up a point on the demand curve.
And so when you say like, if the price increases, then it's quantity demanded that decreases. not
Yep.
demand?
Yep, 100%. Yep, it's just a move. If all we say is price changes, and that's it. If I say price changes, I don't say I'd say the price of this good change, is that a shift in the demand curve or a movement along the demand curve? It's gonna be a movement along the curve.
Okay, and when it shifts, it's demand that shifts or?
Yeah, when it shifts, it's the demand curve, demand that shifts. It's saying that, let's say it shifts right or increases, it's saying that now take that same quantity
Yeah.
and it's a higher price, right? Or now take that same price and we have a higher quantity for that price. Okay? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Have a good weekend. You're good. Yeah, you're good.
Just had a quick question about this one. Like, is this supposed to be like producer surplus? Like, is that why it's correct?
Which of the following statements is false? And so you're saying C is
It's
true or is false. Okay.
like how would it?
Oh, and say, so if it was, okay. I understand. So Nicole is a hockey puck. Oh, yes, producer, because
Okay.
she's the seller of it.
Mhm.
It's like a trick. Oh, yeah, we were talking about that one. It's like a trick question. I
Okay.
don't love it, but that's exactly right.
Okay, and then for this one, I don't know if I did something wrong, but like I did not get any of the answers.
Okay.
I think it just-
Yeah. Can you just look at this? So price of corn is at 3 bushels. Oh yeah, I looked at this one with somebody earlier. So the price is at $3. Okay, looks good to me. Which good. 3 minus 1 times 3. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at what looks good, I think. So let's see what I can do. Why is that? I don't know. It looks good. Let me check. Have any of you guys done this question here? Consumer producer surplus, number 6.
You just have to calculate it.
It's on, yeah, it's on Sakai.
You just have to calculate it.
Yeah. No way. So 6 plus 3.
Why don't you just break it up?
Yeah, 6 plus 3 over 2 times 3. Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I did. It's right here.
Oh, I see why. These numbers aren't exact. So it's like, this is another trick question.
Oh, okay.
This isn't. It must not exactly come at 3. Is that what you had? Like this isn't exactly 6 or something like that.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, not the greatest. That will not happen on the test specifically. I can guarantee you.
I'm gonna go first.
Do we know what the circular film level?
Oh, geez, let me see. I don't know.
Your reactions are the best.
Do we need to know the circular film?
It's just the real good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just drew the diagram on my cheat sheet.
Like you're literally saying just the diagram, the inside and
Yeah,
the outside
yeah.
circles. I mean, oh man. Oh, let me see. I don't know. I think no. I mean, sure. I mean, my standard answer is yes. My gut answer is maybe don't spend a ton of time on it. I mean, we didn't spend any time on it in class really. So, hold on a sec. No. I mean, that's my answer. Oh, shoot, I'm still recording.